and help their clients to develop a healthy relationship with their anger, heal their relationship with their anger, and thereby heal their relationship with themselves, because that's all one in my book. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. So first question for you is when it comes to anger and how we are handling it, what are some of the ways that you've seen in general that it shows up in people's lives?
Oh yeah, so that's a fun question because anger usually is very, very hidden in how it shows up. So, and this is one of the things I train other therapists on. So anger shows up as anxiety. Anger shows up as depression. Anger shows up as mania. Anger shows up as autoimmune disorders often. And a lot of research is backing up what I'm saying right now. Uh, Anger shows up as migraines or headaches or vertigo, insomnia, gut, digestive disorders. So, yeah, I could go on and on and on. So, anger masks itself. And the reason for that is because we humans don't have a healthy relationship with our anger and we dissociate from it. So, we suppress it or repress it, whether we're aware of it or not, for that reason. And when we're not connecting to the anger, when we dissociate from it, it makes us sick physically and mentally.
That sounds scary because I know growing up, there's always that joke, right? Like men can experience only anger and nothing else, and women can experience all the
Mm,
emotions and not anger. And you
mhm.
mentioned having a healthy relationship to anger. And
Yep.
going back on my childhood experiences, it seems that anger was always viewed as a negative thing, a
Mhm.
negative light. Is that still accurate, or is there a different perception out there of anger in our lives?
Well, I'm trying to get a different perception. Well, it's interesting what you're saying. Look at it from a parent's point of view. If you're the parent and you've got little kids, yeah, anger is always going to be negative for you because you want those kids just to fall in line and do what they're told, right? So yeah, you're going to paint it as negative. And I'm a mother. My daughter's now, in college, but I'm not going to say it's not hard having a kid who's angry or throwing a tantrum. It is. It is objectively difficult. However, if that parent can learn, you know what? You know what really solves this problem? It's not me shaming the kid. It's not me punishing the kid. It's not giving them a timeout. It's not, all these things. What really solves it at the root is me saying, little train, I hear you that you're angry because I'm not giving you that cookie. And you're used to getting that cookie every day at this same time, and I'm not. So I don't blame you for being angry. I'd be angry too. I'm still not going to give you the cookie, but I don't blame you for being angry. Tell me, tell me, little train, what do you need right now when you feel this level of anger, but you're not going to get the cookie? Is there something else that we can do to help you? What do you need right now when you feel this way? And so when we can learn to parent like that, anger is not a no-no anymore. It's not something to just dismiss or, you know, try to minimize. It's an invitation to really helping our children know that they matter, because when a child's feelings matter to a parent, the child learns that he matters to the parent. And that gives that child ego strength. They're the kind of child who, when they're in an abusive relationship, is going to have the ego strength to leave that toxic abusive relationship because they learned a long time ago that they matter, right?
When you were sharing that and you're asking those questions, I was actually repeating those questions back in my mind. What is it that I ultimately wanted when I felt anger? And you made
Yeah.
the comparison about the cookie, right? Is well, I
Yeah.
wanted the cookie. But
Yeah.
is it the cookie or is it something else? Well, I wanted
Mm.
attention. I want to be around you. I wanted you to show me I
Yeah.
love. Are
Yeah.
there other ways that we can see it, like I just gave, where it's not the
Mhm.
anger itself, it's something else?
Oh, absolutely. The cookie's not a very good example. It's just a really easy one, but you're right. Kids, you know, so I'm in my mid 50s, and hopefully this is changing. But, growing up, you hear parents go, "Oh, my kid just wants attention." And now that I'm a therapist, I'm like, "Well, yeah, they need your attention and they're supposed to get it. So why are you gaslighting your kid? Why are you scapegoating them as the problem? Give them the attention that they need. That is your job description, parent." And guess what? That is a win-win because they're gonna be happy, they're not gonna be angry, and you're gonna be happy because you're doing your job, you're fulfilling your job description, and you're gonna have a much happier, well-behaved kid over the long run.
We look at, let's say, children that are very young that are angry and they go into the education system
Yeah.
and they struggle with their relationship with their peers. And if they get older, they may struggle with their relationships that are romantic, adults,
Mhm.
or these days, teenagers and teenagers, right? They're getting younger and younger when they're expressing their love. When it comes to emotional regulation in general,
Yeah.
then what are some of the tips that you can give the young adults as they're entering adulthood to ensure that maybe the anger doesn't negatively impact their relationships?
Yeah. So I would start with, validating our anger. So instead of shaming ourselves, shame never helps anyone with anything. However, we use it all the time and it always backfires. So instead of shaming ourselves, instead of judging ourselves, start with like, you know what? I don't know why I'm angry right now. Maybe I don't understand, but I know there's a reason and it makes sense. And I just need to spend some time and understand it, right? So that anger might be a me problem. When I say that, I mean something I'm bringing to this relationship. It's not necessarily the other person. So what I would call a trigger. And I talk a lot about this on my podcast. My trigger has always been when people don't make eye contact with me because I had a mom who never made eye contact with me. And so there's a lot of residual anger from that now I've processed it quite a bit, but in the past I hadn't. And so if I had a partner who wasn't making eye contact with me, I would just lose it, right? So that's a me problem. That's my trigger. That belongs to me. So even though I'm really mad in this moment, I still need to remind myself, "Hey, Bronwyn, your anger is valid, but it's not actually anger at this person. It's anger at your mom. And so let's spend some time getting to know and understanding that and doing some work around that. And that way I can bring my present self to this relationship, not little Bronwyn who's still angry about that, right? So if it's my partner who's making me mad, and it might be, you know, all the above, right? So it might be the partner, it might be me, it might be both of us together. Just saying, you know what? This anger is valid and it has, a reason to be here. And I need to understand this more before I necessarily unleash it on them. But I can use my words right now and just say, hey, there's something going on, or I could just be kind and say, I feel dismissed by what you're saying. I feel like you're minimizing. I don't have to disparage you. I can just say in a respectful way, this isn't okay. The tone you're using is not okay.
When you're sharing that, I was recently asked, why am I so happy? I seem to be always positive. And
Mm,
the person asked me, when was the last time I was angry?
mm,
And I took a moment and I sat back, bro, and I said that I'm angry every single day. I was like, what do you
mm.
mean? I was like, well, what you mean by anger is probably going to be different than what I mean. I'm like, I could be angry at an injustice that I saw. So what
Yeah.
am I going to do about it? Whereas they're thinking angry is, when was the last time you broke something? When was the last time you wanted to do something
Mm,
violently to someone? And I was like, I don't
right.
experience those things. And when you mentioned the healthy aspect, I'm thinking there's so many people out there that when they think of anger, they think of it's something that I want to do to someone negatively, right? Either I want to hit someone, I want to
Yeah.
steal, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm at the point where I'm like, I can be angry at something which causes me to change something in my life that has a positive
Mhm.
impact. Why do you
Yes.
think some people associate such negative behaviors only with
Yeah.
anger and they don't have maybe a positive outlook on it?
Right. Again, going back to our relationship with our anger is so dysfunctional, right? So we shame ourselves. We don't try to understand it, right? And if we don't understand it, we're going to just act out. So, um, we want to heal our relationship with anger. And you know that our dysfunctional relationship with anger was often started at age 1 or age 2, whatever our parents taught us and what they modeled for us too, right? So, it's really about healing that. So, yeah, you're right. A lot of people only see anger as like the acting out and they don't realize, you know, so if I have a healthy relationship with my anger, let's say you showed up like 20 minutes late for our Zoom call. I can feel it in my body and I can say, "Oh, I feel it. It's right here in my chest." Yeah, there's a reason for that. It's because train is 20 minutes late. And what am I going to do? I'm going to channel it out of my body into words. So anger needs to be expressed into words. So I'm going to channel it out of my body into assertiveness. And I'm going to say, "Hey, Terrain, why are you so late, buddy?" Or I could say, "Hey, is everything okay?" Right? Because maybe you got in an accident. Who knows? Do you feel like I'm being angry? No, you don't feel like attacked. I'm just asking a question. And my anger might completely dissipate if your answer was, "Oh my God, yeah, actually, I did get in an accident." Then my anger's gone, poof, right? So that's me being responsible with my anger. I'm naming it, I'm validating it, and I'm putting it to use in a healthy, responsible way by accountability, really, and being assertive. Another way is through a boundary, right? So I could have a boundary with you. If you're like, "Hey, what are you talking about? I'm not 20 minutes late," then I'm going to be like, "Okay, bye," So those are all ways that we can learn. We can unlearn what we learned in our childhood that anger has to be crazy or violent or, hurting other people with our words. And we can learn to have a healthy, mature relationship with our anger and with ourselves.
It's like the person who got angry at their child and then the child passes away the next day, and now that's the only memory they have of them, or the final
Mhm.
memory.
Mhm. I mean, we're going to get angry at people all the time because we're all humans. And humans, what we do best is we make mistakes. That's what humans do best. But the beautiful thing about that is if we don't shame ourselves for those mistakes, if we say, "Hey, I'm human. This is what humans do best," then we can learn from them and we can grow and we can become more mature and more, integrated humans. So, once we can do that, we can learn to be mature with our anger. We can model that for others. It just creates a ripple effect throughout our lives.
You mentioned the word shame quite a bit when it comes to
Mm,
anger. What role does shame and guilt then play with our anger?
yeah. Yeah. So shame. So let me go back to you asked about anger before, and one thing I wanted to add, and this relates to shame. So anger is an emotion, and the way I define that word emotion, I mean, most of the word is actually motion. So emotions want to move us. They're there to move us, to give us wisdom about how to move forward. So when I'm angry, my body's saying, "Hey, you need to have a boundary. You need to be assertive with this person. You need to hold them accountable," right? And that's how emotions work. Shame is not an emotion. People think it is. It is not. It is a feeling, meaning we can feel it in our bodies. Sometimes we don't. But shame is actually completely different. It's more of a belief system about ourselves, really. And in addition, it's not just a belief system, it is a lie. It's a lying belief system because I don't believe humans are inherently shameful. We can behave in ways that are shameful, but I don't believe humans are inherently shameful. And so when we believe we are inherently shameful, which many of us do, we actually start to behave in ways that are shameful. It like shame begets more shame, if that makes sense. Um, so children are born with all the full spectrum of emotions, like anger, but they're not born with shame. Shame is not native to humans. Shame comes from other humans. It's taught. So shame I see as parasitic. It is so it doesn't make us move forward. It doesn't give us wisdom about how to move forward. It makes us stuck. It debilitates us. We don't move at all, and in fact, it sends us back. Does that make sense?
It does. So if I understand correctly, guilt in regards to anger now. So guilt is what I feel because my anger has led me to maybe compromise myself to do a specific behavior.
Actually,
Whereas
shame, not guilt. Yeah,
shame,
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah,
So
mhm.
shame would do that. But shame is the external. That's someone else. You, like, for example, you made me feel, you shamed me for a certain behavior because of my anger. Where guilt, I may have experienced anger, but I feel guilty because maybe I've taken a path that isn't necessarily my own.
So guilt can be healthy, guilt can be productive, shame never is, but guilt can be. But guilt is often learned too. So I find that most of the people who listen to my podcast and probably most of my clients in therapy are people who are on the codependent spectrum who have a lot of guilt. Codependents have so much guilt. And um it's sad because guilt is taught as well as shame. So, guilt was learned implicitly in early childhood. They were learned to feel responsible for their parents' feelings. And if they hurt someone's feelings, they feel tremendous guilt because as little children, they were learned you're responsible for other people's feelings, right? But the thing is, we're actually never responsible for other people's feelings. We are responsible for our feelings and ours alone. We are responsible to other people, but never for them. And so that guilt inhibits us from living within those universal parameters that bring order to relationships and order to our lives. And so we will do things that betray ourselves. We will betray ourselves because that guilt is making us do so.
So, like the child who got a B and
Mhm.
felt guilty because they didn't get the A, and their parents are sad because they
Mm.
got the B.
Yeah.
Now they're feeling the guilt of that because their parents are disappointed. Maybe their parents have to go to their other adult friends and they get made fun of because their children got A's, but your child is the only one in the peer group that got the B.
Well, I might be splitting hairs, but I think that would be more shame than guilt.
That would be
Guilt
shame.
seems yeah, guilt is more relational about yeah, that sounds more like shame. I'm just gonna say that. Mhm.
Okay. So can either or, so both can be internal and external then.
Yeah. Yeah, guilt is an interesting one. I haven't really put that much thought into it, but guilt is taught as well. But then we can also have healthy, productive guilt, like, oh, I think I need to apologize to that person. That does move me forward. That does give me wisdom. And then once I make amends, the guilt's gone. So we also have good guilt too.
Yeah, because I think for a lot of people, they think both are interchangeable,
Hmm.
but they not necessarily are because as you mentioned, the shame will keep you stuck and it may
Yeah.
keep you isolated where the guilt can at least move you forward, as you mentioned, to repair a relationship. I have damaged Bronwyn in some way, so I want to fix that. Where shame
Yeah.
can keep me isolated from you and from others.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And guilt, I think there's guilt that is coming from us, which is the healthy guilt that I don't want to say coming from us. Guilt that's like rooted in truth, right? So if I do something, if I disparage someone out of anger, there's guilt that's rooted in truth that says, "Hey, that was really mean. You need to apologize to that person." So there you go. But if there's guilt that's more rooted in, falsehood that I picked up from my parents learning I'm responsible for other people's feelings, yeah, that's always going to be unhealthy and unproductive guilt.
You mentioned codependency and those who are in those types of relationships. What is maybe preventing people from identifying that they're in that type of relationship before they get too deep into it?
Hmm. That's a great question. Yeah, I don't know, except, I would say if you are someone who feels you are responsible for other people's feelings and you live a life where you are acting based on that, you're codependent. And, I also want to say, like, it's on us as codependents to fix ourselves. Like, we can't. So codependents are interesting because I also find that they are what I call approval addicts. So they are in relationships trying to earn other people's approval. And it's really on us to give that to ourselves. We cannot outsource that to anyone else. We need to integrate by giving that to ourselves. That's really important.
I wonder then how many of those people grew up in a household where the love was conditional, since you mentioned approval.
Mhm. Well, I mean, because they grew up with humans, there was definitely love that was conditional because we all, whether, even parents who try so hard to be the best parents are going to at times slip up. So, yeah, I think all humans have experienced that.
Because I'm looking at when you mentioned the parent-child dynamic. If I
Yeah.
look at my childhood, the love was conditional, and maybe looking
Mm.
back, I didn't realize it was unhealthy
Mm.
when I was in it, but now I realize how that showed up as an adult because in my 20s, I needed that approval,
Yeah.
right? I needed the awards at work. I needed to be good
Mm.
looking. I needed to be the fastest. I needed to be the strongest. I
Mm.
needed to be so many things to so many
Mhm.
different people, but I was
Oh,
everything to everyone, but I was nothing to myself.
that is the definition of codependency right there.
Absolutely, right? But
Mhm.
what happened for me to realize it is every single space that was supposed to be safe, home, relationship, or work, became unsafe. So
Yeah.
all I had was to be within myself and my own thoughts.
Mm.
That's what saved me because at that point I was like, Terrain,
Mm.
not only are you alone, you're lonely. I was
Mm.
missing me. I was missing the good things. Once I
Yeah.
realized that,
Mm.
that's when my eyes were fully open and I can spot it. It's like when you can see people's demons inside of them and they can't see it for
Mhm.
themselves.
Yeah.
When it comes to codependency, then, and
Yeah.
it comes to the approval and it comes to the anger, it comes to the guilt and the shame and all these things that we're talking about.
Mm.
If someone is codependent, is it then people around them can see it before they can see it?
That's a great question. I don't know that people are consciously like, "Oh, that's a codependent person," but there's definitely like an unconscious kind of energy that I think some people are naturally attracted to the codependent person, this energy because that person doesn't say no, they don't have boundaries, they're gonna feed my narcissistic supply. I mean, I can just think of my own father. I haven't spoken to him in years. I probably won't ever speak to him, you know, the rest of his life. Um, but when I gave him the ultimatum and I said, "Hey, I need you to apologize for how you've treated me in the past, and I need you to change, most importantly, and become a safe person, or else this is a no-go." Um, I actually thought he would. He didn't. He never took me up on that. So it's been several years now. But honestly, I don't think that really hurt him or bothered him as much as when my husband finally cut him off because I let my husband stay in relationship with him for a good year. Um, and then I kind of started feeling like, oh, this feels really gross. Like my husband's talking to him on the phone and they're laughing and talking, and he doesn't even care that he's lost relationship with his only biological child. Um, but I thought about it and I thought, you know what? I honestly think he enjoys my husband much more than me because my husband is the classic codependent who is always listening. He would never think to talk about himself. He will just listen to Mike. And I, God forbid, wanted to talk about my life when I talked to Mike, my dad's Mike. Um, he didn't like that. He far more preferred my husband. So that's the kind of energy that I think narcissistic people, they want someone who's just, oh, wow, tell me more. They just want someone who's just listening, who doesn't compete for their narcissistic supply. Yeah, they will absolutely prefer that. That's an energy that they pick up on pretty fast.
They prefer the quiet passenger rather than the backseat driver.
Or or just like the human who wants reciprocity and like, "Hey, let's both talk and let's both listen." Oh, they're gonna go for just the listening only person.
Could it be that some people who experience what you just described is because their healthy journey is maybe illuminating things that may be unhealthy in the other person's life and the person doesn't want to see it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. You sound like you know what you're talking about right now.
Just a little bit.
You wanna say more about that?
Well, absolutely. So I mentioned my 20s, and that was a difficult life because I was stuck between two identities. The
Mm,
train that a lot of people liked, the train that went out, the train that
mm,
partied, the train that did those things. And then it was the person I was becoming, the trains that was more responsible, the train that was very
mm,
career oriented, the train that was doing very well and winning awards on a professional level.
mm,
As I started to create that new identity, other people started getting left behind because they thought that I was too good for them.
mm,
They thought I was bougie, they thought I was acting rich. And during that time, I got a house. When I
mm.
got my house, one of my friends, I invited my friends over. One of my friends at that time said that, why is that you can get a house and I can't? Totally envious.
Yeah.
But looking back, it was my fault because I didn't make a clean break between
Mm,
those two identities. I had one foot in the old, one foot in the new. And I was
mm,
trying to bring everyone to the other side. But what I
mm,
realize now is
mm,
that, and you mentioned this earlier, one, you can't fix everyone. Two,
mhm,
you can't save everyone. And
mm-mm.
three, there's people who don't want any part of the new you and that journey.
Mm.
And I think
'Cause
the
they're
third one is
jealous.
hard for people. There you go,
Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah.
jealous of it.
Or it's
S-
threatening, like you're saying, like, if yeah, so, like, if someone gets sober, then the people who are still drinking, that's threatening because that might reflect on them that maybe they need to get more sober, right? They don't wanna see that.
I did a post where I made a poll and I said to people, remove sex, drugs, and alcohol from your life and see how many friends you have after that.
Mm,
And
mm,
the stories Brahmin people are sharing. People said that one person, to your point, that got sober and their friends, well, you're not going to drink anymore. We don't want to be your friend. Instead of
mm.
celebrating
Yeah.
this,
Wow.
right?
There's so much of that. We're hitting on something that is so common, and it can be so under the radar for a long time, actually. I do think that the healthier we become as individuals, we're gonna start to see things in the people around us that are not pretty because they don't like us being healthier. They don't like, you know, it's threatening. They compare themselves to us, and maybe we never saw that before. Just it brings all of this out. It's hard, but it's also really good because once we end those relationships, you kinda just feel like a different person. It just like actually, yeah, I just recently ended a friendship I had since I was 10 or 11, so over 40 years. Her name was Kathy, and I honestly thought she was such a good person. I really believe that, and just more recently, I started seeing things in her life that I was like, "Hey, I'm kinda concerned about your marriage. I'm kinda" and I started naming it. And she's like, "Oh, now that you're a therapist, you just think you know everything." And I'm like, "No, I'm seeing things that I'm concerned about in your marriage," and she just got so angry and whatever, but, um we ended up I emailed a last final email to her, and our friendship's over, And I was really, really struggling for about a week at least. But it was so weird. One morning, I woke up first thing in the morning, and it was like, I don't know, like a download on my brain, you know? And my brain just said, you're delivered from this person. Like, this is deliverance. And I was like, oh my God, I just never. And then the more I think about and reflect on the 40 years of friendship, the more I see these little signs of her jealousy, little her never being happy for me, little tiny, they were not obvious. They were so covert, but I'm like, oh, wow, that's insane.
I call it the spring cleaning of the soul.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your experience. So it's to me, it's like bittersweet though, because you're delivered, you're free, and that feels amazing. But it's like, wow, that's ugly to see. I thought you were different. I thought you were good, right? So what's been your experience? I was just curious.
I had a friend that I've known not as long as you have known your friend, your former friend, probably about 15 years. And one day, similar to you, I was just explaining certain things to him, and he responded in such anger.
Wow.
And I pointed out to him that I'm concerned for you because between you and I, when you have these outbursts, it's fine because we both know that you won't be able to do something physically to me unless you grab a weapon. And there's always that possibility, right?
Mm,
But I pointed out to him, I was like, if you were to ever get in a relationship and you have these angers, how do you think the woman is going to take it?
mhm,
It's scary. It's right. And I told him that the things that you show me and to
mm,
other friends at that time is the same way that same things that you described was in your household.
mm.
And to your point, I'm pointing out these things. And he
Yeah.
responded the same way. Well, because you coach people and you're a mentor, this and that. I was like, well, yes, because my eyes were partially open
Yeah.
5 years ago. They're fully open now, baby. And I can't unsee what I can't unsee. So I'm like, we have a choice now.
Yeah.
Then I said, I was like, no, you know what? We don't have a choice. I'm like, I have a choice. I can continue to be in this situation with you and these threats,
Yeah.
or I can make a decision and continue to walk this path, and you won't be able to make this journey. We stopped talking for a while. One day I was at lunch. I looked at my phone. Bro, let me tell you, I looked at that phone and it rang and you know, when you answer on the last ring, I was like, Terrain, you shouldn't answer this. I was like, but I owe him the conversation.
Mm.
I answer the phone, F bombs.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, wow, I wanted lunch and now you're impacting my ability to want my lunch. And
Oh,
we
wow.
haven't talked since that day. That's how 15
Mm,
years ended. Frustration, F bombs, everything. But
mhm,
the next day,
mm.
beautiful sunny day, I was like,
Mm.
whew, I'm free.
Ah,
And it was like I thought I was experiencing those 15 years. I was like, yeah, there was good, but I didn't realize how much bad there was until it
yeah,
wasn't there anymore. So talk to that
that's right.
about no longer experiencing that bad.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think that is the ultimate sign, and that is, like, something I can just feel in my body when you're telling me, because like, a lot of, my clients I work do somatic work. So I'll say, "Where do you feel that in your body?" And they're like, "Oh, I feel the guilt on my shoulders," right? It's oppressive. Seriously, this is real. And, just you telling that story, I can just imagine the next morning you probably felt so light, like your shoulders, like the weight. It was like you had this heavy backpack, and you get so acclimated to the heavy backpack, you don't know you're carrying a heavy backpack until it's gone and you feel free, right? You feel light. So, yeah, I mean, it's so crazy. We feel these things in our bodies. And if we pay attention to our bodies, so that's again like healing our relationship with our anger, healing our relationship with our body, not dismissing our body. If my gut is telling me something, I'm going to listen. I am not going to talk myself out of my feelings, whether that's anger, whether that is a gut instinct, whether that's feeling disgusted with someone. I'm going to trust my body. I'm going to trust that there is so much wisdom here to respond to.
Is that a voice that we often ignore?
Yeah.
Our body,
Yeah.
we just don't pay attention to it then.
No, we live in our brain. We live in our heads. It's so horrible. Um, which is disassociating from our body. So, so many people just want to be all logic. And you know what? Logic's great. I'm all for logic, but not when it's at the expense of our emotions and our body, because we will literally talk ourselves out with the logic. So, like going back to the parent child relationship, you hear parents say, well, it's not that bad or whatever. You'll get over it. Whatever. We talk kids out of their feelings. That is not attunement. Kids need attunement. That means listening to their feelings, naming the feelings, validating the feelings. That is attunement. Attunement is saying, you know, it does feel really bad right now. I hear that, and I don't blame you for being angry. That makes sense to me. That doesn't mean we have to give the kid the cookie. It doesn't mean we have to, dismiss the curfew as the parent, but we can validate their feelings, and we need to validate their feelings. So that's attunement. Naming the feeling. Sounds like you feel really frustrated. It sounds like what your teacher did today was really humiliating. It sounds like when your friend said that, you felt betrayed. So that's attunement. It's using empathy. We're putting ourselves in their shoes and we're imagining how they felt. We're naming it, we're validating it. And that's what we do with our children. And that's what we do to ourselves. That's what we need to do for ourselves, not talking ourselves out of it. Well, he's in a better place. Well, it could be worse. Well, this is a really common problem. It's not that bad. That is not love. That is not love. Love is attunement. And that's what we all need more of. We need to do that for others, and we need to do that for ourselves.
I've always believed that when someone says that it's not that bad, it's one of two things. It's one, they're trying to minimize something that is greatly impacting them, and
Yeah.
two, they just want to move on quickly from it.
Well,
What are
good
your,
luck with that.
yeah, right? And I, I struggle to understand why someone would say
Yeah.
that. Like, if I have someone that grew up without their mother or father, or even both parents, that's bad, right? I wouldn't go to them and say, well, it could have been worse.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, there's people out there that have it worse, but what's the comparison? Are you comparing it to the ceiling or are you comparing it to the floor? Right? No
Yeah.
one wants to be at the floor, no one wants to be at the bottom. But another thing that I like to say, I ask that person instead of saying that is, how do you feel about it? Right?
Yeah.
Because it may
Yeah.
be the end of the world to us, right? We like to catastrophise
Mhm.
everything, right? Maybe the end of the world to us. But to that
Yeah.
person, be like, yeah, it was bad. But that
Yeah.
was 5 years ago, Train. Today I'm in a better spot.
Yeah. Right.
Right? What do you think are some of the obstacles that people are facing when it comes to having these types of conversations to, as you mentioned, name it and validate it?
Yeah, and one more part of attunement is listening. So you brought that up. Thank you for reminding me. Listening. Attunement is listening. Listening to our bodies, listening to other people, listening. There's too much talking and too little listening. Listening is also love. You cannot love someone or claim to love someone if you don't listen to them. I'm sorry. You can tell yourself you love them, but you don't. You're not actively loving them. So, yeah, so listening, people are really bad at all of those, and usually because no one's done that for us, and we don't know better. We're just ignorant, right? We're ignorant. We think that if I just had a client tell me their psychiatrist, when she was sharing how her grandfather died and how sad she is, and she was crying, the psychiatrist said, well, he's in a better place. I'm like, oh my God. So this psychiatrist thinks that is helpful somehow. I don't know. Somehow she thinks that's helping, but it's not. So um we don't do that because we haven't had that done for us. We haven't learned and we're ignorant. And we also don't do that because we are dissociating from all of our feelings. And so if I'm holding all my feelings at bay all the time and I'm in denial of my feelings, then when you start crying, that's going to be very evocative for me. Now I'm starting to feel those feelings that I don't want to feel. So I'm going to shut you down by saying, Terrain, it's not that bad. Terrain, he's in a better place. Get it?
So because we don't know what to say, we say the wrong things.
Yeah. And because we don't want to feel.
Because feelings are will make us vulnerable, and vulnerability is a weakness.
There's the shame right there.
And that
And
shame is either from us or from society or something else.
usually we've learned that vulnerability is a weakness. We've been, if we were, if we cried as a child and the response to the tears was not attunement, if it wasn't to be given a hug and, be comforted, then we naturally felt shame. Because if we're crying and a parent isn't attuning to us, we're going to feel a lot of shame and we're going to have an implicit vow in our minds that says, no more of this, no more being vulnerable, so people can make me feel this way ever again. I'm not going to allow that ever again. Right. And so now, the dark side of that is I'm not attuning to myself. I'm in denial. I am disassociating from my feelings. So I've got all these feelings. They're not going away. Feelings don't just evaporate, they stagnate inside of our bodies. But I'm just trying to push them down all the time, which is going to make me into someone who is not a kind person. It's also going to hurt my body. It's going to affect me. It's going to affect my mental health, whether I want to admit it or not.
The emotional battery, what are you charging it with and
Right.
how you're charging it?
Yeah.
Because the way that you're charging and the way that you're charging and what you're charging it with, to your point, is going to impact your body. We mentioned earlier, unhealthy connections to behaviors, unhealthy connections to emotions. You can have the depression, the anxiety, autoimmune. You can have a number of things. And I see so many people, to your point, they will bury it and only charge their emotional battery with one thing, and everything else is hidden. Their closet is exploding at the door because it's
Yeah.
like, let me out. But instead of maybe being emotionally aware, I'm going to go to work 12, 14 hours so I don't even have to think about it.
Well, so then you have the addictive and compulsive behaviors, which is what you're getting at. So it might be workaholism, it might be alcoholism, it might be drugs, it might be addiction, it might be OCD, which is like more, now we're talking compulsive behaviors, right? So yeah, it's going to affect us. It can't not.
It's interesting that so many people will know that, and yet so many people still try to ignore. I don't want to, if I can't think that I'm feeling it, then I don't feel it.
Mm. So then now there's a divide between the brain and the body. And when we divide it, when that fractures, it's hurting us, that fracture.
And then, as we were discussing, it shows up in so many different ways that actually made me remember of a situation where someone was experiencing emotions, they were ignoring it. They went to work 14, 16, 18 hours. Sometimes they worked 24 hours.
Oh.
They would sleep an entire day worth.
Mm.
And that person actually ended up losing feelings in their
Mm.
hands, their
Mm.
feet,
Yeah.
and they've been struggling. And this was maybe a number of years ago. They've been struggling ever since because all that
Mm.
neglect,
Yeah.
all the unhealthy connection to their emotions, it just stored in their body. And the body will whisper, hey,
Yeah.
something's wrong. And
Yeah.
then it'll eventually shout. And when it
Yeah.
shouts,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So that part's tough.
Well, I mean, it's not tough if they start to listen. That's what attunement is. It's saying, "Hey, body, what are you trying to say to me here? I'm sorry. I have been ignoring you for so long. I have been neglecting you. What are you saying, hands? What are you saying, feet? What's going on? What do you need from me?"
So,
And
bro, let
that
me ask.
changes everything.
Yeah, it's. I think we're all maybe all a little bit. Many of us are probably a little bit guilty of ignoring our
Mm.
body.
Yep.
Especially when we're younger, right? We can just keep going and going. It's like the Energizer Bunny. We just keep going and going and
Oh, I
going.
never could. I I never could.
Let me ask you one final question, Brian, before I let you go.
Yeah.
Three wishes, since you mentioned attunement. What are three things you want people to know about maintaining attunement of themselves and why?
Yeah. Yeah. So attunement, listening to our bodies and having a disposition towards ourselves of curiosity and compassion. So instead of judgment, no shame, just, hey, you know, why why am I getting this headache? What is this all about? Am I angry at myself? Am I angry at this other person? What's this happening, right? So we're the experts on ourselves. Doctors will never be the expert on our body unless they come live in it for quite some time. We are the experts on ourselves. We cannot outsource that attunement to a medical professional or even a therapist. We need to be the one who attunes to our bodies. So, yeah, and just healing our relationship with our body, with our anger, with ourselves, knowing that we matter. And even if no one else is treating us like we matter, we can treat us like we matter. And in fact,